Hey, False Facers. I've been watching anime and reading manga for quite a few years, and I just recently noticed a strange trend while watching the anime Wonder Egg Priority, which is a good anime. And no, it's not the similarity between the characters Coraline and I. It's actually bolo ties. I know, crazy, right? In the third episode of the series, Ai's teacher actually comes to visit her and her mother. Now, I won't give you any spoilers. However, while watching the scene play out, I actually realized the teacher was wearing an ornate blue tie. Bolo tie, that is. This got me thinking. For years, I've seen various anime portray characters wearing bolo ties, but why? To answer that great question, let's first look at what the bolo tie is and a brief history of it. The history of who actually invented the bolo tie is a bit odd since we don't really know who invented it for a fact, which is strange within itself considering the tie is such a staple of the western states of the United States. But all that we know for a fact is that it is a product of the USA. We know Native Americans were the first to wear a tie very similar to the bolo, except typically instead of using leather shoestring, like the modern bolo tie has today, they typically wore cloth held together by a shell. But in the 1940s, a man named Victor Emmanuel Cedarstaff actually claimed to have invented the tie and actually patented the clasp that we now know for it. Now looking back, we can easily see that Native Americans had been wearing a version of the bolo tie for years before Victor came along. So for him to claim he invented it is a bit much. It is probably more accurate to say Victor invented a commercialized or a more modern bolo tie, which was at the very least partially inspired by the ties created by Native Americans. Now you're probably wondering right now, how on earth did a tie from the United States wind up in Japanese media? Well, to answer that question, we have to look at the fashion and icon status of the tie itself. Now, it's no secret that the bolo tie was made famous, or at least popular, by the many Western Hollywood productions during the day. From John Wayne to Ronald Reagan, many famous actors actually got their start in Hollywood by portraying tough-as-grit cowboys. With this popularity led naturally to the increased use of the tie. However, in the 1980s to early 90s, the popularity of the bolo began to decline, so naturally businesses began shipping any excess ties overseas to the Asian markets, where American spaghetti westerns were beginning to become more popular. But what about today? Why is the tie used so extensively in animes like Bungou Stray Dogs, heavily in Attack on Titan, Wonder Egg Priority, and even My Teen Romantic Comedy? Well, similar to the history of the tie, there is no clear-cut answer to that. Upon my society's investigation and research with people in Asia, we do know that the tie is somewhat loosely associated with maybe administrators or someone of a leadership status. This can be somewhat backed by the characters who are portrayed as wearing bolos in various manga and anime, the biggest example of course being Attack on Titan. Throughout the series, we've seen leaders of the three branches of the military actually wear bolos. And even in the newer season, we've actually seen where Eren and the rest of the scouts were actually received monogrammed, I guess, bolos with their branch's logo on it. Now, this portrayal does back the idea that the bolo represents a type of leadership role. But again, that belief was simply from people's opinions that I interviewed. And it should be noted that whenever I asked the question, do people in Japan actually wear the tie at all? The response was always no. So I did ask the same question on Reddit r/AskAsians board to see if any more insight could be attained. I did get a response which I believe to be the most honest answer, which was that the tie is just seen as American. This statement could be backed by the character Hayato Hayama from the My Teen Romantic Comedy anime, who has blonde hair and wears a bolo, both stereotypes of America. Overall though, it is very unique that a tie associated with the American West essentially has made its way to popular Asian media. I think it's very interesting that artists in Japan take the time to design characters with a fashion piece taken directly from the US, and it's always neat to see characters sporting the hunk of metal on their neck. But anyway, False Facers, thanks again for sticking around. I'm Black Mask, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.
Big mistake! coming here. Big mistake.